All right, so some major stocks are facing unprecedented challenges as the coronavirus continues to spread and infect global markets. Here with me today to give an update about what's happening with some popular tech stocks is Daniel Ives. He's the managing director of equity research at Wedbush Securities. So, Dan, let's just kind of go through these one by one. And one stock that is such a bellwether as far as tech and consumer trends is Apple. What's the outlook for them right now?
Look, I mean, Apple's really the poster child for what we're seeing in the coronavirus pandemic, especially in Asia. We saw it first in the supply chain, but now, of course, demand, all stores closed outside China. It comes down to the average consumer in the US, Europe, around the world is focused on their health, groceries, and hand sanitizer, not buying an iPhone. We think demand, I mean, we just cut our iPhone numbers by about 15% this year and about 9% next year. So they definitely are going to see it front and center. But I continue to think that services business, as much as that was a big part of the re-rating on the stock, that also provides a floor, call it a 500-600 billion in terms of what we think the valuation of that is.
Right. I mean, it must be so difficult to even try and model what that growth in sales will even look like for the next couple quarters, even the next year.
No doubt. And that's why our view is to do more scorched earth models. Let's just take worst case. And that's why even with Apple, I mean, we basically looked at it, 350 million of 925 million consumers worldwide are in an upgrade opportunity. That means they have not upgraded their phones in 42 months. So we basically said the next 2 years, they're the only ones that are going to buy an iPhone. Basically saying that anyone that's bought an iPhone in the last 3.5 years will not buy an iPhone in the next 2 years. That's where our numbers are right here. And that's why I think that's the best way to go through these scenarios from an investor perspective, just to kind of use just sort of worst case stress test scenarios.
Right. And, pivoting a little bit and looking at another kind of favorite stock of investors is Tesla, which was on top of the world about a month ago. What's going on with them as they navigate through this?
Yeah, I mean, and obviously we saw with GM, Ford, Chrysler, and Detroit closing yesterday. I mean, they'll probably be 75, 80% down from a capacity perspective in Fremont, just given the CDC guidelines. But I think the bigger issue is not necessarily from production, it's just demand. It comes back to the same thing with Apple, is that right now, consumers are not focused on buying a new car. And I think the landscape is just massively changed with, at least in the near term, called the next 3-4 months, economic apocalyptic type feel. You look at Tesla, I mean, we had 530 million units for the year. Now we're at 415, going down about 25% to reflect at least near term what we're seeing. That definitely looks like it's going to linger on, over the next 3 to 6 months.
Right. And, even if electric vehicles do kind of pick up in demand here, do you think that there's could be an opportunity for them if they navigate this correctly with kind of the big three, as you said, shutting down? Is there some opportunity, or is it just too early to tell?
No, I think there's a huge opportunity for Tesla long term. It doesn't change. I still think EV, if you look today, 2-3% automotives worldwide, but near term, and the stock's going to reflect it. It's more risk. Demand's going to be down significantly. But I think the longer term trajectory is still there. And I think the best thing Tesla ever did was raising capital. You raise that 2 billion plus capital and also raise, a number of months earlier. That really took any liquidity concerns off the table. We'd be having a much different conversation about Tesla if they didn't do those capital raises.
It's very interesting. And, looking at some of these chip stocks, is there any positive news there as, China continues to come back online? Anything going on in that industry?
Yeah, I mean, I just had a few calls from some of our people in China. And I'd say the one positive what's going on right now is China's starting to get back to business, back to normal. I think supply chain's starting to get toward normalization. Positive for chips. Now, on the negative side, it's demand, because obviously the demand situation has changed really around the world. But I do think on the other side, this valley, this just deep sort of economic situation we're seeing, I think chips and tech stocks will be on the other side, and we'll see positives, and we're going to start to see, at least what I'm seeing, for the first time in a few weeks today, investors are starting to sort of put toe in the water look at some of these valuations is I think a lot of these stocks are now pricing in numbers coming down 30, 40, 50%, where I think that's maybe a little too, negative in terms of just the different scenarios that we've done.
Right. And, as we keep telling our investors to kind of build their watch list during this time for some of these stocks as we wait for a follow through day to come along. And I just kind of finally want to close just looking at software stocks because, some of these, like Zoom that we're using right now, uh, some of these stocks are kind of showing some resilience in the face of this. What are you seeing in that sector?
Yeah, if you look at Zoom, I mean Slack to some extent, even though that's challenged because of Microsoft. Look at Microsoft Teams, DocuSign's another one. But then overall, look, software has very visible revenue, and these are companies that are going to make. They're not leveraged. They have significant cash flow, and I think you're going to see some more consolidation across software. So I think software becomes a little bit of a safe haven, especially in areas like cybersecurity in times like this. And I think those are just sectors that I'd focus on, even names like a Zscaler, names like a Checkpoint, Palo Alto that you sort of focus on.